Hello, welcome to Robots Retro Spaces. This is the first update since the last video, and well, a lot has happened yet not much at the same time, which is kind of how I expected this car would go. So it's a learning experience for me, so I kind of thought that it would probably be a bit like this. So let's recap. Where did we end the last video? Last video ended with me saying that I wanted to make sure the engine was safe to turn over from time to time while I worked on the rest of the car, and that I wanted to make sure that I just dealt with any immediate rust issues to stop them getting any worse while we worked on the rest of the car. So before I get into how I got on with that, let me tell you that I have learned a little bit about this car. So I have learned that I think it used to be raced. I think the original 76 engine was probably blew up or something, and then they put in a 75 911S engine. The wheels are fake Fuchs autocross wheels, AX wheels, and it's got a fiberglass wing on the back. All of that leads me to think that it may have been raced in a past life. I also learned that that it has dealer AC. I've got an evaporator, I've got a dryer, I've got all the tubes, I've got a mount for the compressor, but no compressor and no condenser. So I think I learned that as well. I also learned that the wiring harness is a mess. And the wiring harness is a mess because, one, the smog pump that was part of the California rules around emission controls, that's been removed along with a lot of the wiring. The AC, a lot of it's been removed with some of the wiring staying, making the wiring messy. And also it came with a system where if you didn't have your seatbelt closed, the car wouldn't start. That wiring has definitely been removed. So the wiring harness is a real mess, and I'm going to come back to that in a minute. So learning a bit about the car, which in itself is quite interesting, I have to say. Alright, so back to where we ended up the last video. So we'll start with the bodywork. Bodywork, pretty good. Still feeling very confident that I have a pretty good car. That I'm going to have a car that has original door sills, original kidney bowls, and original doors. 100% original doors by the time we're finished here. So feeling really good. Did a full inspection of the car. Found only several areas where rust needed to be treated, so 2 squares, about 2 inches square at the rear 3/4 of the car behind on the driver's side. Removed rust killed it, primed it. Didn't have to be a fantastic job, just enough to make it sure it didn't get any worse until ready to deal with it properly. On the passenger side, on the lip of steel on the sill where the rubber connects onto, the rubber seal connects into, that was a little bit rusted. Did the same thing. Still not concerned about the kidney bowls or anything like that, or the sills, because no bubbles from underneath, nothing on the sides at the joints, and nothing under the doors. The only time we had some rust worth looking at was in the front here, so underneath the seals on the front wings, and then a little bit down under the battery. The only time we had a hole was 1 on this side and 2 on that side, and even then the holes were just long, about an inch long, quite thin on both sides. So I don't think those wings have to come off either. So feeling pretty good. Right, I think that is the worst piece of rust on the car that I have found, and once again that started from some bubbling that was very visible, like right here. So once again, if I can't see it on the outside, I'm feeling quite confident that the rest of the car is pretty solid. So once I've cleared out all the loose rust, I would say this right side is probably slightly more deteriorated down this wing here than the left side, but still don't think it's that bad. Yeah. Thought I'd check my logic regarding seals, and if you can't see any evidence then there's nothing to worry about, so thought I'd try it with the top seal here, and I was pretty much correct. A little bit here, but really it's actually in pretty good shape all the way along, so yeah, feeling good about rust in relation to this car. Now we're at the under the bonnet, and as one would expect, you've got what is to be considered to be one of the worst places for rust, so that's down here under the battery, so that's where the battery lives. Not so bad, but what I'm going to do now, I'm a little bit worried about what might be under the fuel tank, but I don't know, we'll leave that for another day. So what I'm going to do now is just get the wire brush on it, tidy it up, and see where we get to. Feeling pretty good about this because from what I've read, a bad engine and rust is what's going to kill you, so I'm pretty confident that we've got the rust sorted. It's just the engine. So let's talk about the engine. To be able to run the engine, you want to make sure that it's safe to do so, and none of my gauges were working, so I decided to pull one out and have a look, and this is what I found. Then I decided to pull them all out, and this is what I found. Right, number one rule of fault diagnosis: make sure that when you see acorns inside your binnacle that you check to see if all your wires have been chewed off, resulting in instruments that do not have any connections. So it's quite clear that a squirrel made its home in the dashboard for a while there, and yes, well, live and learn, and well, these are the surprises of a very old car. And at that point I decided that, well, I need to take out some more of the stuff behind the dash, so I went in from under the hood here. You'll see that I've taken out all the airbox and everything, and this is what I found.
Okay.
It's here, right?
Wow. Oh, wow. No dead squirrel back there?
No dead squirrel. I think these squirrels had a great time and had a great home because there were acorns all in the airbox and in the front wings. In the front wings, the holes you can access from under the scuttle and down the sides. I had to get out the vacuum cleaner, and the amount of acorns blocked the vacuum cleaner. That's how many acorns were in there. So that was a surprise. But I don't know, I think you have to be prepared for surprises within a car like this. And secondly, I also discovered that they had a really sweet tooth for insulation, wire insulation, because they'd eaten all the wires back to the harness. Yeah, I managed to find a wiring diagram on Pelican Parts forums. That made life so much easier. I couldn't have done it without it. Just to give you an example, on the back of the oil pressure and oil temperature gauge, it must be about 35 connections, 8 of those external to the gauge itself. So it was a lot of work to track down each one of those wires. But took about a week and got there in the end, and got to the point of putting them all in and turning the car on. Now, I wasn't feeling that confident. I went and bought a fire extinguisher, got my wife to stand right here and point it at the car for when I turn the key, and this is what happens.
That's a very happy bunny.
Turn on the lights. Yeah. We've got lights. I don't know. Oh yeah, the potentiometer works. Got lights, got lights, got lights, got lights. I don't think I've got a working clock, but so no fire, thumbs up. Mostly works, thumbs up. Some of the light stuff doesn't work, so I lost my indicators in the process, but I got all my other gauges, so that's a problem for another time. I just wanted to have my gauges so I knew I could run the engine well. So yeah, so I started running the engine. The engine was running rough. Certainly didn't sound very healthy, and to the point where I wasn't really feeling quite confident about running it to temperature. So I sort of gave up and turned it off. Decided I'd try and do a compression test, but you can't do a compression test unless the engine's up to temperature. So I felt like a catch-22, and even finding a compression test kit that fits these horrible deep spark plugs, angled spark plugs, is just really tough. So let alone getting the spark plugs out with a normal socket. I got my socket stuck in cylinder 1, and I had to get it out with a coat hanger. That was a stressful couple of hours, I can tell you that much. So what I did is I got my uncle to come around. He's a mechanic, he's worked on old Volkswagens, knew that it had a CIS injection system. We started the car up, he had a bit of a play, didn't express any immediate concerns about the engine or the cylinders, which makes me feel very, very good. That doesn't mean that there's not a problem, but certainly doesn't mean there's anything catastrophic. So he suggested, after he had a look at the cylinders and that sort of thing, that we do almost like a top end, not a top end refresh, but change the fuel injector lines, the HT leads, the distributor cap, the contacts, the condenser, and then I'll do an oil change, oil filter, and a fuel filter. So that's what I'm going to do. That's the next thing I'm going to do. So with any luck, that'll make a big difference, and then we'll get back on to stripping out the engine. So if you have any questions, let me know. If you'd like to know what I did, let me know, and I'm happy to tell you. The whole thing is quite interesting, and I also have a factory hardtop with my car, which I'm really, really, really happy with. So managed to get that off. Took a while. Didn't want to break the little hinges because you can't get those anymore. Yeah, just let me know if there's anything I can help with. Every now and again I post additional updates to Instagram, so check out the Instagram. Otherwise, see you in the next update. Could be a month, could be 2 months, who knows. Cheers.